Is it time for the Reds to find a new spot in the lineup for Elly De La Cruz? We are going to tell you our thoughts on where EDLC should be hitting in the batting order. All that and more on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds with myself, Jeff Carr, and my co-host, Stephen Offenbaker. We are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans that are turned our addiction into information for you. As now my fifth season covering the Reds. This is the second season with Steve, and Steve himself, he also had a podcast before. As he came on here, we've been covering the Reds for a really long time on a daily basis here on the Locked On Reds podcast. So thanks for taking time out of your day to listen to us talk some Reds with you. We encourage you, if you're listening, hit us up on Twitter, or if you're watching here on YouTube, make sure you drop a thought down in our comments section, because talking Reds is what we do, and we want to talk Reds with you. Locked On Reds is, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day, and if you listen every day, or if you watch every day, we'd love to let us know down in the comments section. If you see us at the ball game, don't be afraid. We'd love to meet everybody. Come say hey, and let us know that you're an everydayer. Coming up on today's show, there's a question that I've been asking myself, just because my wife has been like, I don't care. And I've kind of been wondering about this and talking with some other folks about it. So Steve and I are going to have a conversation about where the best spot in the lineup is for Elly De La Cruz. Plus, Andrew Abbott is coming up on a very interesting, very strange time where it's kind of a question. I don't know. I know that there has been a couple of quotes out there from Nick Kroll as to what they're going to do with Andrew Abbott, but I think that was at the time of being asked, and I think that the Reds are considering what is happening with their rookie phenom starter. Plus, back in spring training, we were talking about some different things, some guys that we expected to be good, some things that we expected to be happening, but this year's been insane, and there's some things that if you'd have told us back in spring training, we'd have laughed at you, and we're going to look at a couple of those things later on in the show. Before we get to all of that, I want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter the promo code LockedOnMLB for a free white tech hat like the one that I'm wearing with any order. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. And we promise you this, Elly De La Cruz is going to have an amazing career. And quite frankly, I think maybe at some point next year, he is going to be the bona fide leadoff dude for this team. I said that a couple of weeks ago. I thought that he was best in the leadoff spot now, but I think we've seen enough of a sample size to know I think the Reds are doing him a disservice by having him bat first. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, here's the thing with Elly De La Cruz. He has a lot of expectation associated with him. And what I'm seeing is a guy that's pressing a little bit while still trying to adjust to the league and figure things out. And I think you're right. That is a disservice to him. I have often said, and have been proven wrong, most recently by Matt McLain, that you should start everybody when they come up from the minor leagues down near the bottom of the lineup, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that range until they get a feel for everything. Now, Matt McLain is a very rare exception that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show for a lot of reasons. But with Elly De La Cruz, I think regardless of what handed pitcher is on the mound, really regardless of who else is in the lineup right now, they should not bat him above 7th for the next 3 or 4 weeks. They should drop him down, plug him in there at the bottom, in the bottom third of that lineup, and just have him be consistently there, no matter what else is going on above him. Let him get comfortable. Let him work on that swing that he's clearly struggling with a little bit, that he's clearly got a hole in. And I don't think it's an unfixable hole. I think it has a lot more to do with him pressing than it does anything else. He's not Aristides Aquino. We're not making that comparison. No. I think he just needs a little help to take the pressure off and a little help to get dialed in. And by moving him down, it will take some of that pressure off. It will limit some of his exposure and hopefully give him some more pitches to hit, really, if I'm being honest. Hopefully by batting down there, he gets some more stuff to look at. So for me, I would like to see him move down.
There have been a lot of comparisons of some folks trying to invoke the name of Aristides Aquino. I'm like, it's far too mature, far too premature, far too premature. The only reason that anyone is saying that is because of his strikeout rate. His strikeout rate is very high, 33%. Mm-hmm. But we knew this was going to happen. We said whenever he was called up, get ready. There's going to be high strikeout rates, and you're going to look at those strikeout totals on some days and be like, man, I wish he struck out a little bit less. But everything else that he is bringing to the table is still here. He still has, according to Fangraphs, a 1.2 wins above replacement. Like, I think there's some people that believe that Elly De La Cruz is nothing more than a strikeout right now. And I feel like that is completely false. Let's look at this real quick, because when it comes to what he brings to the table, you're still talking about a guy that hits the ball as hard as Joey Votto does, and Joey Votto has the hardest average exit velocity on the team right now. They both hit the ball slightly over 91 miles an hour on the average, and that is over 3 miles an hour above league average. So it's good to see he's putting hard contact on the ball. This isn't something that it's, he's just barely getting by whenever he makes his contact or anything like that. He's got a good profile when it comes to those hits. The biggest thing for me, and you said this, batting leadoff, teams know that he's up there to hit, he's up there to swing, he knows what he wants, he knows that he wants to make a difference in the game. And right now his mind is not thinking that a walk is going to make a difference. So they're throwing him breaking ball after breaking ball that is below his knees, at his shins, nowhere near a good area for him to cause damage with his bat. And he's being a little bit over anxious. I feel like you're right. I think if you knock him down in the order 7th or even 6th, I was kind of considering 6th to be the spot, because you could still have like Will Benson right behind him. You could have, Joey right in front of him or something like that. And so he's sandwiched in between some dudes that you don't want to pitch to either. And so you're going to have to pitch to one of those guys. So all of those guys are going to get some pitches to swing at. And I think that the biggest thing for that is just patience, man. He just needs to ratchet up the patience, because right now his demeanor is not ideal for the leadoff spot. The guy whose demeanor for the leadoff spot is TJ Friedl, and I'd love to see him leading off right now. I think that you're right, though. I think that's the good spot in the lineup to put Elly.
I could live with 6. And listen, part of the problem with Elly De La Cruz is our problem. It's not Elly De La Cruz's problem. We've done the same thing to Elly that we did to Hunter, which is, set this expectation level so darn high that barring an all-star singular Hall of Fame type season, right? A record-setting single season, they're going to fall short of all of these expectations that were set out there. And to
be fair, though, you hit for the cycle your first 2 weeks in the big leagues. You kind of perpetuate that a little.
But a lot of it is us. I mean, Cowboy said this on a broadcast several days ago, and I thought it rang very true. People are talking about Elly struggling. He's not hitting the ball. He's not doing things. And the game that Cowboy was talking about this, Elly was on a 4-game hit streak, and people were still unhappy. Right. He had a 4-game hit streak, and people were upset that he's not doing enough. So for me, I think maybe we need to adjust our expectations, adjust Elly's spot in the lineup, let him get comfortable. Listen, I have no doubt in my mind, this guy is going to be good, going to be great for a very long time. We just need to give him all the tools to get there and maybe slow our roll a little bit.
And the number one thing to follow up your point is he's 21. I think that what we say right now applies to right now. It doesn't apply to the rest of his career. Like, he is going to be a bona fide dude for a long time. Like, I don't have any qualms about saying that he's going to be in the stratosphere of the top 5 players in the league at some point, maybe in like a year or two. He definitely has some maturing to do, and we're seeing the flashes of that talent. But part of this is a learning process. And I feel like while, analytics would say you want to give him the most at-bats possible, I think you're also doing him a disservice in that he's like, I'm the leadoff guy. I got to do damage. I got to go up there and do damage right now. And every pitcher knows it. And I don't care if that pitcher has 2 pitches and they're both fastballs. They're going to learn how to throw a curveball to him, and they're not going to throw him a fastball. He's just not seeing fastballs right now. And I think he will see a lot more of those if you move him down in the order.
Yeah, and that's going to be the case until he learns to demonstrate patience, like you said,
Yes.
until he learns to lay off. They're going to keep throwing the junk until they're walking him every time, and he's stealing second, stealing third, stealing home. Then he's going to get the fastballs, and until he
Not seen a lot of the base running.
We're not seeing it because he's not getting the opportunity. So, for a lot of reasons, I think this should happen. It may be best for Elly and for the Reds to put TJ Friedl up there at the top right now, move Elly down, and give him an opportunity to grow in this lineup. But listen, Jeff, Elly De La Cruz is not the only Reds rookie that we should be talking about right now, making adjustments with, because Andrew Abbott is pitching more now than he ever has in his life. And the Reds are probably going to have to take a look at limiting him here come the stretch run in September. We'll tell you what may happen and how it may happen coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Bird Dogs. I have never had a pair of shorts that made me look as good as Bird Dogs do, while also being so comfortable. That all changed when I got my first pair of Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs make you look great. They are stretch khaki shorts designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. They fit like a dream. Bird Dogs invented cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. They use anti-stink sweat whipping fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Seriously, you can go from your couch at home in these shorts to the golf course, to the beach like I do, out on the town, and then out for the night and not have to change your shorts at all. You can wear the same pair of Bird Dogs for all of these events. They are the most comfortable pair of shorts I have ever owned. To get your own pair of Bird Dogs, go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb and enter the promo code LockedOnMLB for a free white tech hat with your order. For the YouTube viewers, this hat right here, it's also one of the most comfortable hats I've ever had. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb and enter the promo code LockedOnMLB to get your free hat with your order. That's birddog.com/lockedonmlb with the promo code LockedOnMLB for the free swag. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Remember, if you can't be at the ballpark, you can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just download the app and search the word Reds. Thanks, as always, for making Locked On Reds your first listen every day. Everydayers, coming up on tomorrow's show, Jeff's going to be flying solo, and he's going to tell you who is the most surprising player of the season. I'm going to disagree with whatever he has to say, and I'll let him know about it on a special live show we've got coming up on Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So if you don't agree with what Jeff has to say tomorrow, take notes. We're going to get together about it on Thursday. All right, listen, Jeff, we talked about Elly De La Cruz and some adjustments that may need to be made to put him in the best position to be successful and thus making him the most successful for the Reds. There's a pitcher that we may have to have a similar conversation about, because Andrew Abbott is just slinging the ball more than he ever has in his career. I know that Nick Krall is on record being quoted as saying that Andrew Abbott has no innings limitations, but I think that that was a response that you can take in a vacuum. You can look at it at the time as what was going on. Because if you look at what's really happening, I think Andrew Abbott is starting to show a little bit of signs of wear and tear, a little bit of signs of fatigue. And I think if the Reds want him to be available for a potential October run, which is a real serious possibility, they're going to have to find a way to shut him down for a week or two and buy him some time to rest up. Now, I don't know if the right answer is a complete shutdown or my favorite 6-man rotation, but they got to do something to limit his innings through August and September if they want him to be able to throw effectively in October.
I agree. I think here's the thing, and we want to frame this way. Like, this is not a question of what we believe the Reds should do. This is us ascertaining what they will do. And yes, everyone is saying, well, guys, there's a quote from Nick Krall. That quote was a month ago. And that quote that Nick Krall had was, there are no plans to shut him down. You can pretty much imply right now. Like, he was saying that at that moment. And I think as they look at him, and the biggest question for me that keeps coming up, and we'll see him again coming up this weekend in Pittsburgh, but his last two starts, you put them together, he's got 9 innings in his last 2 starts, 10 earned runs, 8 walks, 14 hits allowed. Absolutely looking like fatigue is set in. And this is coming off 2 straight starts of shutout ball where he went 6 innings and 8 innings and threw over 100 pitches in each inning. I think that there was a lot of admiration that I have for him in those starts. I have a lot of admiration for what he's done all year. In 12 starts, he has 9 starts that are 3 runs or less. Just beautiful performance from him, where I don't necessarily think we thought he was going to be this good. But at that same point, as much as the Reds are looking at this and saying, yes, there's a lot that we could do right now with him, I think that there's probably some sort of phantom IL stint coming so that they can help manage his workload a little bit too. Now, the problem with that and the caution with that is what they did with Graham Ashcraft at the end of last year. And that wasn't a phantom where he did get hurt, but they brought him back for a couple of starts and he really struggled in those final couple of starts. So I think there's something to be considered here for the future as opposed to just this year. And I think the Reds are going to do that.
You know, one of the things that they could do, and this would be my little suggestion box note for Nick Krall, is to be strategic in how you're activating the pitchers that are coming back from injury into the rotation. When we're talking about Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo, when Hunter Green comes back, if you time it such that you bring Hunter Green back on the day that Abbott's supposed to start and you skip him in the rotation, just that one turn, and you give him an extra rotation cycle of rest. And you do the same thing when Nick Lodolo comes back and you give him an extra rotation cycle of rest. Well, now instead of having 32 starts or whatever the number would be at the end of the regular season, you've saved 2 or 3 starts by doing that. And how many starts is he going to get in the postseason? You know, well, if they make a run all the way to the World Series, it'll be a few, but you could save some of those. So maybe shutting him down is not the best option if he doesn't truly have an injury, but you could be creative enough to buy back a few of those starts and not hurt the team, not do any damage to the pennant race, keep Andrew Abbott in his normal routine, but skip a start. And I think that might be the best answer versus shutting him down for 2 or 3 weeks.
I'm just envisioning Nick Krall standing up in the front of the office and saying, yes, we have our suggestion box meeting coming up, so get your constructive compliments in ASAP as possible. No, he's not Michael Scott, obviously. But when it comes to how teams as a whole, not even just the Reds, but how teams manage their pitchers, it's changed over the years. And I think everyone immediately goes to Steven Strasburg whenever they think, oh, team is doing well with a rookie pitcher, they're just going to shut him down and they're going to say he's not pitching past this date. Things have completely evolved from that point. And I believe that, you know, there were the couple of years where Kyle Bodie was here and Driveline was a huge part of the Reds development system. I definitely think that they retained different aspects of the Driveline philosophy. One of those aspects were, this is how we can manage our pitchers' workloads throughout the season and not destroy their arms in the process. And I think that they're going to do that. And as these guys come back from health, and then you could even maybe lump Connor Phillips in there at some point in September. And then you've really got an interesting rotation of arms to kind of relax them a little bit and not, you know, put all of the stress on guys like Abbott and Williamson, who have just thrown far more innings than they ever have in their careers as pitchers. Like, I remember I was talking yesterday about Williamson's start where he's just like, yeah, this is the best start of my life. It's like, well, yeah, because this is your first year in the major leagues. Like, this is it. You'll never get to a higher level of competition. So you can say all the numbers that well, I don't know. Between travel ball and high school ball, it's like, no, those weren't as high stress pitches as these are. And they're just setting career numbers with this.
Yeah, I think that's one thing people forget when we start looking at like innings pitched and total number of pitches thrown. It's just different in game action, Major League Baseball regular season. They throw differently, even though they say, they're out there competing when they're on rehab assignments and pitching in the minors. It's just different. It just naturally is different. So yeah, this stress level on his arm is more than Andrew Abbott has ever experienced. And I just think it would be smart. I think if the Reds are serious about riding this rotation and getting themselves positioned to be a legitimate problem for other teams come October, and I think they could be, this is one of the things they have to get right, because you can't roll into a postseason series with Lively and Weaver still in this rotation starting playoff games. It can't happen.
No.
So the smart thing to do is make sure you get Andrew Abbott healthy to October while working in Lodolo and Green and maybe Phillips, maybe other guys. So I like the idea of giving Connor Phillips a couple September starts and using that to, again, buy back a couple starts from Andrew Abbott to use in October. I like that idea. I think that's the way to go. I've settled in talking it out loud. That's where I think they should go with it.
And that is where Nick Kroll and Derek Johnson get paid the big bucks, because yes, you have to manage this year as far as playoffs and how you're going to deal with all of that, but you also have to manage the future, because as I mentioned on yesterday's show, the future rotation is Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Graham Ashcraft. You've got Andrew Abbott. You've got Brandon Williamson. You've got Connor Phillips. You might even throw Ben Lively in there if you want to. You're talking about in a couple of years, you got Chase Petty. Lyon Richardson might still be in the mix for this thing. Like, there are so many guys that are already in system. So how do you manage them so that this year isn't their best year? Because when you're a rookie, or even if you're a second-year player, you don't want your rookie season or your second season to be your best season ever. You want to continually get better. So I think that is going to be a consideration for them. And I think that whenever we hear things and see reports about, they're managing him, that doesn't mean they're shutting him down. That just means that they're divvying up the time a little bit differently. Steve, this year has produced some amazing moments, and there's going to be some interesting postseason episodes where we get into arguments about our top 10 moments in Great American Ballpark history, and I think possibly 8 of them might be from this year. Mm-hmm. Which ones would have absolutely blown our minds in spring training, though? We'll talk about a few, including one about Tyler Stephenson, coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Sleeper. Want the chance to win more money with less picks? Who doesn't? Sleeper's going to help. Just head over to Sleeper, where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. Sleeper is now offering up to a 100 times payout for up to 8 pick contests. Choose as many as 8 players that you like and pick more or less on your favorite baseball stats like homers, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win big. If you think Joey's going to bang, then smash more on the homers. If you think that Elly is going to run, smash more on the steals. And if you think that Graham Ashcraft or Andrew Abbott or Brandon Williamson, who's been pretty hot here recently, is going to get the whiffs, then hit more on the strikeouts. Entries can be made in 30 seconds or less. It's that easy. They also have safe and fast withdrawals when you're ready to get your money. So use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit over at Sleeper. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And remember, if you can't be down at the ballpark, you can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. On the SXM app, just search the word Reds. And you can follow the podcast on all your favorite platforms, including right here on YouTube. Make sure that you click that subscribe button and you click the bell to get notified if this is your first time checking us out. Thank you so much. Plus, join the Locked On Reds Discord channel for more Reds talk in between episodes. I've got a link down in the description of today's episode. We'd love to have you. A lot of great folks over there talking Reds baseball and talking through games like yesterday where the Reds basically got no hit after the 5th inning. And yeah, we had that great moment of Stuart Fairchild in the Little League inside the park homer that was called a triple with an error and run scored and all that good stuff. But moments like those just make me think about moments as a whole and different things, like looking back on the past and what people would have told you. Like if we went back in time to February and told ourselves in February all the different things that were going to happen this season, how many different things, there would have been a lot of things that would have just made us laugh. Like, you're crazy. That's not happening. Are you serious? But the number one thing for me that I find almost insane is that, Steve, if you look at the production that Tyler Stephenson has had this year, and if you look at the production that Luke Maile has had this year, they're not that far off. Like, you could still make the argument that Tyler Stephenson has had a better year, but it's not far and away better like it should be.
You're right, because you're also talking to the guy that thought Tyler Stephenson had an outside shot at 30 to 40 home runs if his legs were rested. And boy, did I miss. He's only a few short of that with 8 right now. You're absolutely right, though. When you look at those two players, when you look at Tyler Stephenson, when you look at Luke Maile, the production, at least from an OPS plus standpoint, they're very, very similar. As a matter of fact, I think Luke Maile has a slightly higher OPS plus than Tyler Stephenson. I'd have to pull it up and look, but Tyler Stephenson has had more plate appearances, more games played, but you're right. Luke Maile has been a tremendous surprise. And does that mean Tyler Stephenson's been a tremendous disappointment? I don't know if I'm ready to call it that, but I am a little disappointed. Maybe not tremendous, but I'm a little bummed that he's not been the guy that I thought he was going to be. I really thought he was going to have an opportunity to be a cleanup hitter for this team, and it's just not manifested itself at all.
It's been very strange. And even just talking about OPS plus and the hitting stats and stuff, sure, Tyler Stephenson does have a little bit more higher slugging percentage than Luke Maile does. But the one thing that Luke Maile has him in spades, and this surprised me to no end, is in the fielding side of things. Like, I mean, when you look at what he does behind the plate when it comes to I was looking at Savant, that Baseball Savant was talking about, like, pop time, as far as like how quick a catcher gets up and makes the throw and things like that. Luke Maile is much better at throwing runners out. They're both really not that good at framing pitches, but Maile has a slight edge in that too. So I think when you look at their entire profile, when you bring defense into this, Luke Maile really does begin to have a big argument. And I think more than anything, obviously not playing Tyler Stephenson at DH as much has been the thing that has left Curt Casali on the injured list. I really think at this point, Curt Casali's on the injured list because the Reds are like, you're a Red.
He's just, bro, I'm hurt till the off season. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah. I'm rehabbing. It's great.
He's a coach. He's a coach without he's a secret assistant to the regional manager type deal when it comes to coaching right now. But I think that overall, the game that Luke Maile has had this season has been the biggest reason why Curt Casali's not been needed. Like, you move Stephenson back to catcher mostly. Yeah, that's a big part. But Luke Maile has just played so well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And for me, if I would go back and tell myself anything in February, if I went back and told myself that Matt McLain was going to be the biggest splash on this team in 2023, I had chuckled at you. If you recall, In 2023, I was saying that I thought the best, highest use of Matt McLain was to get him trained back up on center field, convert him to an outfielder, let him be your guy out there in center field because the outfield depth was junk. Boy, did Matt McLain really just show me and delivered every single thing that he told me he was going to do when we talked to him last year. He has done all that and more. He currently leads the Reds in OPS plus with 135. He's the number one OPS plus guy on the team. He's probably, at least in my opinion, the best defensive shortstop on the roster right now as well. I know that Elly has set the records with the throws across the infield and some of those things, but when you watch them play shortstop, and if you do it, with an open mind, to me, Matt McLain plays the position better. He's a little bit more smooth. You don't see him backing up on the ball as much as you see Elly backing up on the ball. I think Elly is ultimately going to prove himself to be a third baseman. Right now, it's easy to keep Elly there with Jonathan India out of the lineup. That's going to force some moves. But I think right now he's the best defensive shortstop on the team in Matt McLain. And then you look at his WAR, 3.1 since being called up in May. 3.1. He is approaching all-star level of WAR in his rookie season for the Cincinnati Reds. If you told me any of these things back in February, I would have been like, you're crazy. It's going to be Elly De La Cruz. It's going to be one of these other guys. Noelvi Marte is going to come out of nowhere and be the one to, I would have had a lot of other answers than it was going to be Matt McLain probably making a serious push to be the rookie of the year. And I know we've talked about that before, that he may come up just short, but if he continues to play like he's playing right now, if he pushes this WAR up past 4, if he continues to hit over 300 on the year, he's got a shot to win this thing. And I never would have thought that he would have been the guy that separated himself so much from the other rookies, especially when we're talking about Spencer Steer. You were on the Steer cheer committee. Yes, you were on that from way back in spring training. And Matt McLain, I think, has even exceeded that.
No, and think about the head start that Spencer Steer had on him, and counting stats like WAR still favor Matt McLain, even though he has had all that less, playing time comparatively. And think about the roster of rookies that the Reds have employed this year. The Elly De La Cruz of it all, the Spencer Steers, the Andrew Abbotts, the Brandon Williamsons. Like, it's not even a question. The most consistent performer has been Matt McLain. And yes, we've had the moments of Elly De La Cruz, but Matt McLain's given us some moments too. And really the biggest thing for me is that when you see talent from guys like Elly De La Cruz, and when you see like power and the different abilities that Spencer Steer has on a baseball field, and pitching and stuff from Williamson and Abbott, like, the biggest thing next is to develop consistency. I think Matt McLain's already developed consistency. Like, what is he going to look like in a full season for 162 games? Number one, I'm pretty sure he's a guy that can play all 162 games. I have no questions about that whatsoever. Number two, I know it's going to be at the top of the lineup, whether it be first, second, or third, wherever he ends up slotting in there. I think he can be equally as productive no matter where you put him in the lineup. Is he going to be a second baseman? Is he going to be a shortstop? Whatever it is, he's going to play it at an elite level defensively, and he's awesome on the base paths. There's no hole in his game. And how many rookies have we seen the Reds call up in recent years and just be like, this game's full of holes? This guy is the exact opposite. There's no holes whatsoever.
Yeah, I think Mr. Consistency may not be a flashy nickname, but it's definitely an apt description of what he's doing. I look for him to continue to just get better and better and better. And, he's also really just that type of guy that Cincinnati loves to embrace. We see these kind of guys come up, right? He's that blue collar, work hard, just, keep your word, do what you say, try hard kind of guy. And those are always the guys that this town loves. Those are always the guys that end up with their own special fan sections. And, we've skirted around that. Who is going to be the next, the next Joey? Who's going to be the next guy that really is beloved in this city for a long, long time? And it just as easily could be Matt McLain as any of these other rookies. So I'm really excited to continue to watch him play. And one thing's for sure, it's only just getting started.
It's only just getting started. I really think too, like, to kind of piggyback off that point, like he is just, there's guys that you look back in the past and you say, boy, I really enjoyed watching, Scooter Gennett, or I really enjoyed the year of Derek Dietrich, or I really enjoy, different things like that. And there are always massive holes in those guys' games as well. Like Matt McLain is going to be here for years and years and years to come. Literally might be the guy. I think we finally narrowed it down as to the dude who they should sign next, and I think it's him.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I've said it when we talked about this several weeks ago. Put the C, put the C on his chest. Let's do it. Let's make him the captain. And on that note, that's where we'll go ahead.
It's got 2 C's on his chest.
That's right, for sure. Before we get out of here, don't forget you can catch every pitch of the Reds hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just download the app and search the word Reds.
That'll wrap it up for this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks as always for making us your first listen every day. Every dayers coming up on the next Locked On Reds. I'm going to be solo, and we're going to be looking at the most surprising Red of this season. Matt McLain is up there. I don't know that he is my most surprising Red, though. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's podcast. And like Steve said, make sure you join us Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We got a live show. We're going to have you drive the ship with us. But until then, Steve, what can people expect from you and me?
They can expect us to keep watching the game, keep gathering the news, keep following where the information leads us, gather it all up, and report right back here with it to keep everyone locked on Reds every single day. Whoever you pick, you're going to be wrong.
I'm always right.